Okay, let's just jump right in with a term that really just stops a conversation cold.
Right.
Family annihilator.
Right.
It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie script, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But today, we are diving deep into the case that gave that term a very modern and terrifyingly high-definition face. We're talking about the Chris Watts case.
Yeah, and it's a case that I think keeps psychologists up at night. You're right. Family annihilator, the technical term is familicide. It's a very specific, very chilling category of crime.
Hmm.
And the Watts case from back in August 2018 is just so unique because it might be the most documented murder in history. I mean, we have everything. The texts, the body cam footage, GPS data, the interrogation tapes. We basically watched it unfold in real time.
That's the thing that gets me. If you were online in 2018, you didn't just hear about this. You felt like you were watching a reality show that just went horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah.
You have this image of the perfect dad, a pregnant wife, two beautiful little girls, and then just a complete erasure, a void. But our mission today isn't just to rehash the timeline. I think most people listening probably know what happened. We want to try and figure out why. How does a guy who everyone described as soft-spoken, conflict avoidant, decide to hit a reset button on his life by murdering his entire family?
That phrase reset button is absolutely critical here. We've got a stack of sources, psychological profiles, I think it's a 2,000-page discovery file, analyses of the interrogation, and they all paint a picture of something much, much darker than just a snap decision.
Right.
We really have to talk about the difference between a despondent annihilator and a self-focused one, because Chris Watts he's the textbook definition of the second one.
Okay, so let's start with the setup. Or maybe we should call it the performance.
The performance, yes.
Because to understand the crime, you really have to understand the stage they were all playing on. So we're in Frederick, Colorado, cookie-cutter suburbia. And you've got the Watts family living what looks like the American Dream 2.0.
Looked like is absolutely the key phrase there. Shanann Watts she was incredibly good at curating a digital reality.
Yeah.
She was a promoter for an MLM, a company called Lavelle, and that meant her life was basically her product, so she was constantly on Facebook Live.
I actually went back and watched some of those archives. It's fascinating and just heartbreaking. You see the kids, Bella and Celeste, just playing. You see Shanann praising Chris, calling her Rock, her best friend. And Chris is always there, kind of in the background, usually playing with the kids or maybe grilling something. He comes across as the ultimate introvert, just quiet, compliant, almost like a prop in Shanann's show.
And that dynamic is so crucial. The sources all describe Chris as passive, almost pathologically passive. He just went along to get along.
Right.
But underneath that curated Facebook feed, the foundation was just rotting. They weren't just struggling financially, they were drowning. They'd already filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy back in 2015.
They were being sued by their HOA, weren't they?
Sued by their HOA, maxed out credit cards, all to maintain this appearance of the Thrive lifestyle that she was selling.
So you have a guy who hates conflict, stuck in this insane financial pressure cooker with a very dominant wife who documents everything.
Yeah.
That is a recipe for disaster. But usually when that cooker explodes, people get a divorce.
They don't.
They don't commit quadruple homicide.
Right. Divorce is the rational way out. But you have to look at the catalyst. Chris had already checked out of that marriage long before the murders. He'd started an affair with a coworker, Nicole Kessinger.
And this wasn't just a fling for him. I mean, if you read the text messages and look at his search history, it seems like he was having some kind of adolescent regression. He wasn't just cheating. He was role-playing a totally different life.
Exactly. And this brings us right back to that psychological profile. In forensic psychology, we often see what we call despondent annihilators.
Oh, okay.
These are, fathers who lose their job, they feel immense shame, and they kill the family to save them from poverty before usually killing themselves. That is not Chris Watts.
Not at all.
No. Watts fits what's called the hedonistic or self-focused profile.
So in that self-focused view, the family isn't a group of loved ones he's failing. They're, just luggage, an inconvenience.
It's worse than that. They're obstacles. The affair with Nicole Kessinger gave him a taste of a life where he wasn't just a prop in Shanann's videos, where he wasn't drowning in debt, where he didn't have these responsibilities. He wanted that new life, but in his, completely warped narcissistic logic, he couldn't just leave. Divorce means alimony, it means child support, it means, and this is key, looking like the bad guy.
That's the part that is so chillingly bureaucratic. He didn't want the hassle of a divorce. He wanted a clean slate, It's like he wanted to cancel his subscription, but the subscription was his wife and his own children.
And that is where the whole nice guy mask just falls away. The sources point out that these types of killers, they often have no prior history of violence. They don't get into bar fights.
No
They
shit.
bottle everything up until the people who are in their way become completely dehumanized. He stopped seeing Bella and Celeste as his daughters. He started seeing them as past tense issues that just needed to be resolved.
Okay, let's move to the timeline, because this is where any idea of a crime of passion defense just completely disintegrates. It's August 13th, 2018. Shanann is on a business trip in Arizona. She's pregnant with their son, Nico.
The hours leading up to her return are just haunting. Shanann is texting her friends. She's trying to save the marriage. She's buying books on relationships. She has absolutely no idea she's walking into a trap.
And Chris, meanwhile, has already arranged to go to a desolate oil site, Survey 319, by himself the next morning.
Yep.
Shanann gets home at 1:48 a.m. We know this because her friend Nicole Atkinson dropped her off. She walks into the house. Chris is awake, waiting.
And sometime in that, early morning darkness, the reset began. He strangled Shanann in their bed.
But here's the detail that makes this case so different from almost any other I've ever read. After he killed Shanann, the work wasn't done for him. The children were still alive.
This is the hardest part of this entire case to process. He loaded Shanann's body into the bed of his work truck, and then he put his daughters, Bella and Celeste, alive into the back seat.
I just want to pause on that. He drove for 45 minutes to that oil site. That is a long drive.
A very long drive.
That's 45 minutes of silence. Or maybe the girl's asking, is Mommy okay? Where are we going, Daddy?
It completely destroys the idea that he just snapped. You can snap for 10 seconds. You cannot snap for a 45-minute drive while your living children are sitting right behind you.
No.
That drive was a premeditated march, a death march. He had 45 minutes to turn around. He had 45 minutes to drive to a hospital, to the police, anywhere. Instead, he drove them to their graves.
And what he did at that site, it wasn't just murder. It was disposal. It was disposal in the most industrial, horrific way possible.
He smothered the girls, one by one. But the disposal method, forcing their small bodies through the 8-inch thief hatches of these crude oil tanks, that points specifically to that self-focused psychology.
How so?
It suggests a total desire for erasure. He didn't just want them dead, he wanted them dissolved. He wanted them to literally cease to exist in physical form so he could go back to work, text Nicole, and just start his new life.
It's the ultimate narcissism. If they aren't here, I don't have to deal with them. So the sun comes up, he's at work, he's texting his girlfriend, then he has to pivot back to being the worried husband.
And this is where that facade just crumbles in record time. Usually these killers can keep the act up for a few days, maybe a week. Chris couldn't even make it to lunchtime.
And that's where Nicole Atkinson comes in, Shanann's friend.
She's the hero of this story, really. She knew by 9 a.m. that something was wrong. Shanann hadn't texted. She went to the house. She called the police. She phrased Chris to come home from work.
Which leads to that famous porch interview. Even before he was arrested, that news clip went viral. He's standing there in a T-shirt, arms crossed, just swaying.
Oh, behavioral analysts have had an absolute field day with that clip. You see what's called duping delight? It's this subtle, almost invisible smirk.
He thinks he's getting away with it.
He does. But his language gave him away. He kept referring to his family in the past tense. I loved those kids. She was the light of my life.
It was just a terrible performance. But the real nail in the coffin wasn't even the interview. It was the neighbor, Nathan Trinastich. This is my favorite part of the investigation because it just shows how technology has changed everything.
Absolutely. So the police are at the Watts house. Chris is trying to play the cool, confused husband. And the neighbor, Nathan, just says, "Hey, I have a security camera pointing at your driveway. Let's go watch the footage."
And the body cam footage of them watching that tape is legendary. You have Officer Coonrod, you have Nathan, you have Chris, all just crowded around a TV in Nathan's living room.
And up on the screen, you see Chris backing his truck all the way into the garage at 5:30 in the morning, something he never did. He was loading the truck in secret.
But if you watch Chris in that room, he's physically imploding. He's got his hands on his head. He's swaying back and forth. He can't even look at the screen. He looks like he's about to be sick.
It is the physical manifestation of guilt. And Nathan Trinastich, the neighbor, he knew it. As soon as Chris walked away, Nathan turns to the officer and just whispers, "He's not acting right."
And that was it. That was the turning point.
The police knew right then. This is not a missing persons case. This is a homicide.
So they bring him in. And we have to talk about the interrogation because it is just a masterclass. You have Agent Tammy Lee and Graham Coder from the CBI.
They played it perfectly. They didn't come in hot, screaming. They came in soft. They lowered their voices. They pulled their chairs up close to him. They wanted to create this atmosphere of, like, us versus the world.
And then came the polygraph test.
Which he failed, spectacularly. A score of -4 is considered deceptive. Chris Watts scored a -18.
Wow.
It wasn't even close.
When they told him he failed, he didn't confess right away, though. And this is where the false narrative comes in. This part always infuriates me, but I understand it was a tactic. The investigators, they actually gave him the lie, didn't they?
They did. It's a common technique. You offer a moral out to get the suspect to at least admit to the act. Agent Tammy Lee asked him, Chris, did Shanann do something to the kids? Did you hurt her because she hurt them?
She basically handed him a script. You can blame your wife.
And because Chris is a narcissist and a coward, he grabbed that lifeline with both hands. He admitted to killing Shanann, but he claimed, falsely, that he walked in and saw Shanann strangling the girls, and he killed her in a fit of rage.
I killed her because she killed them. It is such a hateful lie to tell about a dead woman who can't defend herself.
It's despicable. But for the investigators, it was the breakthrough. Once they had him admitting to one body, they knew they could get the rest. They knew the fit of rage story didn't match the evidence.
Right, the 45-minute drive.
The drive, the oil tanks. You don't dispose of bodies that way if you're a grieving father who just snapped.
Exactly. The disposal proved the premeditation, and eventually the whole house of cards just collapsed. He confessed to everything.
He did. He eventually admitted there was no rage killing of Shanann. He killed her to be free, and he killed the children because they were witnesses and obstacles.
The legal wrap-up was surprisingly fast after that. No trial.
No, Chris wanted to avoid the death penalty, which was still on the table in Colorado at the time. So in November 2018, just 3 months after the murders, he pled guilty to 9 counts.
Including 5 counts of first-degree murder and unlawful termination of a pregnancy?
That's right. He's currently serving 5 life sentences, plus another 84 years without any possibility of parole. He's at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. They had to move him out of Colorado for his own safety.
He will die in prison.
No question. And frankly, the speed of that sentencing was a mercy for Shanann's family. They didn't have to sit through a trial and see the autopsy photos, paraded in front of a jury.
So here we are years later. Why does this case still grip us so much? I mean, true crime is a huge genre, but the Watts case feels different. It feels like a cultural touchstone.
I think it connects back to that idea of the ordinary monster. We're conditioned to think that monsters look like monsters. We expect them to be the creepy guy in the van or the explosive, violent alcoholic. Chris Watts was none of those things.
He was the guy next door. He was the guy who would help you jumpstart your car. He was the perfect dad on Facebook.
And that's the terror of it. It exposes the fragility of our entire social contract. We rely on empathy to keep us safe. We assume the person sleeping next to us has a basic operating system that says, don't kill people.
Yeah.
This case showed us that someone can mimic that operating system perfectly for years while running a completely different, much darker program in the background.
It's the betrayal of the image. We looked at those Facebook videos and we thought, that's a happy family. And it turns out we were looking at a hostage situation that just hadn't gone kinetic yet.
Precisely. It forces you to question how well you really know anyone. If a man like Chris Watts, passive, quiet, nice, can harbor that kind of darkness, what does that say about the other quiet people in our lives?
That is a terrifying thought. It suggests that the absence of red flags isn't necessarily a green flag. It might just mean the mask is really, really good.
And I think that is the lingering lesson of the Chris Watts case. Narcissism doesn't always look like arrogance. Sometimes it looks like a quiet man who just wants to start over no matter what the cost.
Well, this has been a heavy deep dive, but a necessary one. We can't just look at the horror. We have to try and understand the mechanics of it.
I agree. Awareness is really the only defense we have against it.
I want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over. We talked about how Chris wanted a clean slate, a new life. In our culture, we really romanticize the fresh start. We love stories about people who just drop everything to go find themselves.
But we rarely ask what they're leaving behind or who.
Exactly. So look around your own circle. Look at the people who seem the most compliant, the most conflict avoidant, the ones who never seem to get angry, and just ask yourself, is that peace? Or is it just the calm before a very, very violent storm?
That is a question that will definitely stay with me.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay observant, and take care of each other.
Stay safe.